Welcome back, Knuckleheads. I'm Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily Kayo Gameplay, and today we have an Azalea match. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the jungle. We have fun and games. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias, and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now, then compare that to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, a FaB deck link is in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily KO gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. If you'd like to go above and beyond, the best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the daily FaB gameplay Discord. At higher tier levels, your name will be featured in every DKG video. You'll get bonus DKG content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily KO gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about our sideboard and some general thoughts about the Azalea matchup. This is one of my earlier KO games, so expect to see a lot of opportunities for tightening and optimizing our gameplay. Conceptually, at least to me, Azalea should be easier for KO than for FaB to beat. This isn't me saying that the matchup is easy or favored, and in fact you can see on FaB that Azalea is slightly favored against KO on average. I say that this should be easier because KO can generate more value off of a single action point than FaB can. KO's average response to Red in the Ledger is Bear Fangs for 9 or Wild Ride for 7 versus FaB's Mounting Anger for 4 or Ronin Renegade for 3. We also have much better armor for blocking than FaB does, and covering an 8-power dominated Red in the Ledger isn't all that troublesome for us. What the matchup should come down to is whether we can pressure Azalea into an off turn and pivot with a good Blood Rush Bellow or Cast Bones from the previous turn. As soon as we put her on the back foot, keeping her there should be very simple. Talking briefly about what isn't in our deck, this is a matchup where I would want to use Fiendal Spring Tunic and No Fear, and the fact that I am not using them here is just a reflection of my inexperience. I honestly think that Tunic is better than Heartened Crosstrap into every matchup besides Kano, as the extra resource can be the difference between an extra Mandible Claw every 3 turns. What I see most often in my turn cycles is that I'm a single resource short of a better turn rather than a full 2 resources on a single turn. And I'm not finding that my KO games end quickly enough to ever discount the potential of a second Tunic activation either. Finally, Tunic is an extra point of block, which can be extremely impactful in any game, and especially so against Azalea. No Fear is a great way to mitigate damage from Azalea, but is also a way for us to dodge the forced discard effects of Codex of Frailty and Judge, Jury, Executioner. My current KO deck list is much better set up for Azalea, so be sure that you're following that rather than this. Even with a suboptimal loadout, let's see if we can get there against this Femme Fatale. We win the die roll, and we are choosing to put Azalea first. The hand we draw into doesn't really do anything. Going second, we don't have any windups that we would benefit from. We have Azalea drawing into the natural Knock the Death Whistle, putting a Red in the Ledger on top. This will be a dominated Red in the Ledger. I'm assuming that there is some sort of lace effect to accompany this. Deadeye and a Lace with Blood Rod. So quite a lot of damage coming our way. We can't do much to block it. It has Dominate. Even if we gave all of our armor, we're still getting hit by red in the ledger. So instead we are just signing up to take 8 damage and return with probably a Wild Ride. How I want to block this is kind of weird, probably just with Blood Rush Bellow. I would like to play Wild Ride on my turn to deal 6 points of damage, generate a Might token, and also hopefully keep a blue in my hand to pay for the Blood Rot. So while it is tempting to put this Blood Rush Bellow into my arsenal, I don't think it's exactly going to line up, as there is always a chance that Wild Ride is going to discard it. I could also see blocking this with a blue and pitching my Blood Rush Bellow into Wild Ride, just in case the game goes long enough that we come back to it. Seems very unlikely, and Kayo does not have a way to shuffle his deck. So a Blood Rush Bellow pitched to the bottom of the deck is going to stay there, but it is at least better to keep into our deck. In case this is one of those weird games that goes to fatigue, we at least keep it there. Blocking with a Pack Call just shows that we have a 6 on top of our deck. We won't have the action point to utilize it, so it doesn't particularly matter here. We have our Swing Big and we have our Wild Ride. What I would like to do here, interestingly, is actually just Swing Big, pitching our Blood Rush Bellow. We could Wild Ride, pitching our Blood Rush Bellow, hoping that we discard our Swing Big to generate our Might and keep our blue in hand to pay for Blood Rot. But if we discard our blue and draw into a red, then we can't pay for it. So let's just Swing Big. It's more value. It's 8 points of damage compared to the 7 from Wild Ride and a Might token. We pitch our Blood Rush Bellow. We know that we're going to pay for Blood Rot. And we put a Wild Ride into Arsenal, which is a pretty good card to have there. We are going to tie up life totals with Azalea. One quick note is that she has New Horizon Death Dealer, which is not a combination of equipment that I had seen before. I don't know. Hopefully my Azalea players can tell me if this is the hot new tech. To me, it just seems weird. Codex of Inertia, definitely setting up these 6-card hands with the Ponder token. There is a Heat Seeker in this deck as well, which will work with New Horizon and arsenaling a card, but to me it just seems very strange. The hand we draw into here sucks. We are expecting that this Ravenous Rabble is going to be followed up with a red Infecting Shot. As far as our response to it, not great. We could take the Ravenous Rabble damage here on our turn. We could block with a Runner and a Bone Breaker. What I would like to do is actually block this Runner with this Ravenous Rabble with a Savage Feast. We can block the Infecting Shot for 8. We can put a oh no, I'm doing this correctly. That's good. We'll block the Infecting Shot with Runner, Savage Feast, and Bone Breaker. We'll generate our Might, and on our turn, we Runner for 8. It isn't the most impactful return, but we are at least dealing 7 points of damage. This is not my favorite because it sets this up. We do not make a Might. We lose our Wild Ride, and we lose a Reckless Swing. Overall, I think that was bad. I can see the advantage of getting an extra point of value by getting the Might generation from Wild Ride, but I think keeping the Wild Ride to try and pivot when Azalea misses her disruption is just so much better than that extra 1 that we also just missed. This is a large Heat Seeker, threatening and Inertia as well. So very likely that we're going to lose this Runner in Arsenal. If we had a Wild Ride, there is definitely a line where we take this 14, possibly flesh bagging away the card in Azalea's hand, then returning with an E-Strike for 5 go again, following that up with the Wild Ride in our arsenal that would hopefully discard Beast Within and continuing to go from there. Without a Wild Ride, we are going to take a bunch of damage. We could block 14 here. We could give our entire hand plus Bonebreaker plus Scab Skins. But even, what are we then doing on our turn? We don't get to utilize our might. So I think the best that we can hope for is to block for 6 with a Riled Up and Beast Within, then return 7 with E-Strike. I don't necessarily love Flesh Bag here. There is a world where Azalea snaps this and plays Codex of Frailty, but based on blocking this arrow, we would still have cards available to block whatever it is. We could block with E-Strike and Scab Skins if it was something like Red in the Ledger or even another Heat Seeker, and then run a runner pass. So I do at least like blocking this for 6 with our Riled Up and our Beast Within. Keeping in mind that we do have the inertia, I think this is a fine block. Azalea does, in fact, Codex. We'll see what she's going to grab. It is this Infecting Shot, which we can no longer block unless we wanted to give armor to do so. We would like to throw this runner before we lose it. Choosing instead to prevent effectively 7 damage rather than deal 6 of it. I think that's fine. I do generally think that we overblocked on the Infecting the Heat Seeker, but I can understand why we might have done that. Another Lace with Inertia here means that we will not get to keep an arsenal. Already, I'm thinking I would like to block with everything but Cast Bones. The fact that this is another Knock the Death Whistle means that we will only get to block 3, but we are at least setting up Cast Bones here. Very interesting Azalea build. I want to say this is much more close to what Brody Spurlock plays, where the entire thing just folds to a single Warmonger's Diplomacy. But if we aren't playing it, then every hand is an 11 to 14 power arrow, which is frustrating to deal with. Judge, Jury, Executioner coming for 11 with Dominate. We can block 3, we'll take 8. We are going to discard down to our Cast Bones, and hope to both hit the 6 might plus agility and hope that Azalea cannot do much to take us off of a big turn, because at this point we need a big turn. We do hit. We draw into a great set of cards. Savage Feast plus agility is an incredible combination of effects, as we get our 9 points of damage between Savage Feast and Mandible Claw, while also drawing a card. Azalea with an Infecting Shot here is going to deal big damage, but is not going to take us off of our turn. Choosing to block with a Swing Big so that we are not put into a position where a Razor Reflex, Rain Razors, just kills us. If we were at 2 here, we would need to keep a blue to pay for this Blood Rot Pox. As it is, we're at 5, so we can't afford to take the 2. I'm wondering if blocking with Flesh Bag might have just been better in a hypothetical situation where we hit the Rain Razors. Azalea can't push that extra 2 points of damage. She may also end up with a clunky hand. We are going to Savage Feast. This is coming in for 12 with Go again. We are going to get to work a Claw into this turn and Heart and Cross Trap Command and Conquer. So a situation where HCS is much better than Tunic would be. We are presenting big damage. We are getting Azalea's Arsenal, which Without Skull Bones, I have no idea how much Azalea can actually utilize that card in Arsenal. She can't just opt. I don't know. Bolton Shot here coming for 5 with Go Again. We will need to block from hand. We are, of course, also going to Flesh Bag this. Choosing to keep the Swing Big, I think, is great. In a hypothetical situation where Azalea's turn just ends, she only had 1 arrow and we just banished it, we would get to Swing Big for 8. Azalea would need to give us multiple cards from hand, or a card from hand and New Horizon, and lose the card in her arsenal. We can block this Sleep Dart for 3 and go down to 1. It's worth noting that Kayo without his hero power is much worse, as he will not generate a might from discarding a 6. More importantly, all of his 5s are now 5s. So it isn't going to matter too much in this turn cycle. We don't need this Wild Ride to have Go Again. We will lose 1 point of value because our blue 5 does not upgrade to a blue 6 for the purposes of Kayo. Also, Kayo does not have the ability to make might by discarding a 6, even if we had hit 1 naturally. So we take Azalea down to 3. She loses the card in her arsenal because New Horizon was destroyed. She is playing around Reckless Swing, which we just drew, so great news for her. We're going to see if she can just put a big enough turn together. She only needs to deal 6 damage. We draw 2 non-blocks, which is terrible. She does play Codex of Inertia, which grabs a random card off the top of the deck. We are going to discard a Bare Fangs. Apparently not an arrow that Azalea can just fire off. So she is going to blind Azalea into another Seek and Destroy, which is such a lucky break for us, exactly what we need. But we do find ourselves in a position where we can't just Reckless Swing. So we're gonna have to Scab Skins here. I am a big proponent of never rolling Scabs at any point unless not doing so loses the game. If Scabskin says roll a 4 or higher and win, then Scabskins is an incredible card. If Scabskin says you're going to lose unless you roll a 4, just go for it. But outside of that, without Gambler's Gloves, and I think Apex Bonebreaker is way too good to ever run Gambler's Gloves, rolling Scabs is just asking to lose. So we are going to have to roll Scabs here because we're dead if we don't roll more than a 4. And we do hit a 5, so we are going to get to Smash Instinct. Coming in for 5, we're going to get a card out of Azalea's hand thanks to the Intimidate. So she is going to block for 5, stay at 3, and this Bare Fangs is going to kill her. So quite a lucky turn of events from us. The Azalea Codex brick into natural blind Azalea brick. Very close game. I don't even think the Azalea drew particularly well. Red in the Ledger into Judge, Jury, Executioner was very good, but outside of that, it isn't like she was hitting the 0 for 3s that really got us. She was just playing out the hand. So I think Azalea is not as bad for Kayo as she is for FaB, as I said. I do still think, though, that she is a bad matchup for Kayo, and that Kayo needs to draw pretty well to put a win together. Kind of similar to FaB's deal of needing Azalea to take a turn off in order to respond with an Art of War. Kayo's looking for the same thing with Bloodrush Bellow or Cast Bones. But based on the layout of Kayo's deck and how you can draw much more clunky hands than FaB can, Bloodrush Bellow isn't even a guaranteed thing. Cast Bones is probably your best bet, or no fearing a Judge, Jury, Executioner to be able to keep a full 4-card hand so that you can try and pivot off of that. But I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. I hope your Azalea games go better as a result of this video. If that is the case, be sure to assault and batter that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. I'd ask again, if you haven't already done so, to please consider a subscription to my channel. YouTube subscription is free, helps me a lot, but whatever you do, be sure to come back tomorrow for more daily Kayo gameplay. Until then, take care.